Davidson. Next from the Waterloo Undergraduate Student Association, is it Ms. Town?
Yes. Good evening, Mr. Casey and distinguished parliamentarians. I thank you for the opportunity to appear before you. I am the Vice President Education for the Waterloo Undergraduate Student Association, WUSA, and my predecessor, Matthew Garretts, joins me today to speak on behalf of the undergraduates of Research Intensive Universities, or UCRU. I would particularly like to commend Ms. Oliver for her statements, which covered the wide array of concerns that students are facing. And I'll focus now on students' financial concerns. I'd like to express gratitude for the government's actions to support Canadian students, as well as to Parliament and the wide array of members who showed concern for students. The aid package will be a welcome relief for thousands of students that WUSA represents. We do, of course, continue to monitor students' concerns, and I can share some of them with you today. We know that the Canadian Emergency Student Benefit excludes international students. We've heard stories like that of an Egyptian student who had to find a Canadian lease when his home country's borders closed to him. This leaves international students studying and residing here without support to pay the same expenses that Canadian students do, while struggling to save money for tuition in the fall. We are asking our university, the provincial government, and the federal government to coordinate to ensure that these students do not fall through the cracks. We are also hoping for a quick rollout of the announced programs to assist students who are already experiencing significant financial need. We appreciate the rapid development of support programs and thank the civil service for their tireless dedication during this time. We are hoping that applications will soon be open and that students can have certainty about when to apply and when to expect payment so they can adjust their financial plans accordingly. Accurate information and a timely rollout are keys to achieving the program's policy goals of the new student benefit, the service grant, changes to loans and grants, and other programs. Once again, I thank you for your time today, and I'll now pass it to Mr. Garretts.
Thank you, Ms. Town, and through the chair, thank you to the committee. It is an honor to be here today. Apologies. WUSA is one of 9 members of the undergraduates of the Canadian Research Intensive Universities, or UCRU, which represent over 250,000 students across Canada. Last month, I had the privilege to work on a report drafted by UCRU that detailed our members' concerns about financial situations and recommendations for student support in response to COVID-19. I'll detail some of my thoughts here today on the government's response where Ms. Town has not already covered them. We have heard concerns from one of our member institutions about support for Indigenous students, and we are hoping that more information will be made available to provide clarity to them about what supports might be available. Currently, it is unclear to students if support programs for Indigenous students are complementary to the CESB or whether they are exclusive. More information about this and other programs, including the Canada Student Service Grant, will be key as students plan out their summer. Students are also concerned about the rising cost of tuition, especially as post-secondary programs are administered online. Years of decreases to public funding of post-secondary education by provincial governments has led to an increased financial vulnerability of institutions to drops of enrollment, especially international enrollment, a condition that we fear this crisis may bring. The vulnerable institutions are diverse in size and in geography. Therefore, we ask the federal government to collaborate with the leadership of post-secondary institutions, as well as provincial ministers of higher education, to explore what role the federal government may play to ensure universities' finances can weather this pandemic. Students are concerned about being able to afford to continue school in September. For that reason, we'd also like to mention that we see the increases to the Canada Student Grants Program as stepping into that gap for most students in need. And we are incredibly grateful that these increases were included in the student aid package. However, student aid usually uses the previous year's tax data, which may not account for students' parents' or guardians' income, which may have been affected by COVID-19. And we ask the government to investigate how to account for this in the fall 2020 Canada Student Grant disbursements. Finally, an area of concern is with regard to eligibility requirements, which prevent students from accessing CESB if they have income even slightly in excess of $1,000 per month. In the event that CESB must be extended, which we hope will not be required, we suggest that the government investigate whether a phase out of the benefit for students earning above 1,000 in a more gradual fashion, while holding steady or increasing the $1,250 base amount. On behalf of UCREW, I would like to convey our thanks for the government's action, which we understand to be the largest one-time financial investment in student aid in history and proportional to the crisis that students face. We also hope that action can be taken on these outstanding priorities of international student inclusion, efficient and timely rollout, clear communication of information, and coordination to support our post-secondary institutions. We have also provided some additional detail in our joint brief, which is still under translation and will be distributed to members in the coming days. Thank you very much for your parliamentary service during this time, and thank you for listening to students' concerns. Both Ms. Town and I look forward to your questions. Thank you. Merci.